This is edition number 1 of the Blacksmithing Technique Sessions, the Miner's Candlestick with Mark Aspery, Module 3. The Blacksmithing Technique Sessions are an audio-visual interview with a blacksmith talking through their method of making a featured forged metal piece while viewing step-by-step photos of their techniques. The following sequence is an audio-visual interview with Mark Aspery and Victoria Patty, talking through Mark's personal method of making a candlestick. This is Module 3, and the contents: shouldering a flag of material for upsetting the corner number 3, making the candle holder and drawing it out, and chamfering the stock of the eye. Special acknowledgments go to Mark Aspery and his devotion in cultivating the craft of blacksmithing through his many, many endeavors. All the photo credits go to Mark. He took them all. And thank you again to the first edition sponsor, which is the Artists Blacksmiths Association of North America, otherwise known as ABANA, the nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving the craft of blacksmithing.
All right, so we have a flag of material, and you notice I'm pointing the flag towards the heel of the anvil. So all of my, the spikes, if you will, the peaks, are all on the same side of the bar. So that's the giveaway. You already have one on the other end of the bar that you're holding. Mm-hmm. So just make sure everything else goes on the same side of the bar. Mm-hmm. The distance between the arrows, and notice I'm talking about the edge of the anvil, not the top of the radius, the edge of the anvil, about ½ an inch. You could go to 5/8 or so, you wouldn't be wrong. Much more than that, and it starts to become a bit of a pain.
Okay.
And we're just going to set that down again, and this is the first part of our upset corner number 3. So we've done 1, we're doing 3, and we'll come back in between them and make 2.
Okay, so this is going to be number 3.
Correct.
With half-faced hammer blows, and the rest of the peaks are on this edge.
That's right.
Okay. Now we're back on the Vic.
Okay, we're going to draw that. We had a little flag of material that we isolated, which is too much material for us for what we need. I want a candle holder that's about 1 inch in height. Certainly you can go taller than that, and they were made taller than that, but the one that I want to make is 1 inch. And I have 3/4 inch by 1/4 material. My candle holder should be 1/16 of an inch thick, so I've got way more material than I need. So I'm going to draw the flag down to about ½ an inch by 1/4.
Oh, this here.
That's right. So I'm getting rid of 1/4 inch of material.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And again, I chose that step now because I've got the heat there. I'm not in a gas forge, I'm in a coal forge or coke forge, so that's where I had the heat, so that's why I'm working there now. I could come and deal with it later, certainly, but I'd have to move my heats up and down the bar, and I want to keep the piece hot. Okay. So now, right at the base of that flag, I'm going to create a shoulder. And again, notice that the shoulder is in the same side of the bar as all the peaks, so we're not changing the bar at all. And I'm just shouldering that in. Again, just dealing with it now because I have the heat of the bar. Okay. And I'm going to move away from there now and reheat the bar further down. But I'm just doing what I can with the heat that I have available right now. And what will this become? This is going to become the candle holder. This is going to become 1/16 of an inch thick and about 1 inch, 1.25 actually wide, but we're going to cut a little bit off. Okay. Here we are showing the setting of the shoulders. So this... Right. This is, again, this is number 3. So you can see... Yeah, that's 3. And then the one just to the left there is the shoulder that we just made. So the candle holder. Now, the important thing, you can see my little arrow there on the right. Yeah, that's the increase in thickness that we got. We don't want to lose that. That's another square corner coming, upset corner coming right up. So be careful that you don't lose that. That means hold the material at a slight angle on the anvil as you make that other side of corner number 3. Oh, I see. And only hitting as close as you can to the edge here to keep this thickness. You've got it. Absolutely correct. So that's like about a hammer's face. Yeah, and if you and don't forget it's a half-face blow. So let's say it comes, the edge of the hammer is level with my arrows, and it probably run out to the shoulder of the flag. That's it, right there. So that'll be one hammer face.
Right.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here you're showing, you're introducing another piece.
Tool.
Tool.
Right. And this is a flat-topped fuller. Now I forged mine, but you could fabricate this. You could take a little bit. Let's say take 2 pieces of 1-inch square bar, put them one on top of the other, weld them together, and then put a bit of angle iron on the bottom. I choose angle iron because I can file it quite quickly to make it fit a smaller hardy hole. Well, there's lots of 1-inch hardy holes out there, but no 2 of them are the same, I don't think.
Right.
So the angle iron, one I can weld inside of the angle iron, so my weld's not interfering with the hardy hole or the edges of the hardy hole, and 2 is it's quickly to adjust. Quick to adjust.
Great.
But this is a forged flat top fuller, and I am now setting down. Remember how earlier we set down 1 inch from behind the hook to make the corner number 1? Well, now this is the material actually on top of the fuller has to be the same length when forged as the material for that first corner to the hook, which is 1 inch. So the top of my fuller is 1 inch. And so that's why the fuller is as it is. And I'm going to set this down, and I'm starting to make, on that bottom slide on the left-hand side, that is the first half of corner number 2.
This here.
Yes.
Okay, so this is 3.
That's right.
1 is off over here.
That's right.
Okay.
And you can see this is just, it's a mental game, isn't it? How do you keep up with what you're trying to do, what's going on where... do the corners have to be there? No, they don't. So if you wanted to ignore the corners and just draw this out, that would be fair game.
Sure.
But if you wanted to have another game at a slightly higher standard, then these are some of the things that you can do.
Right. Now, yeah. And so I think at the beginning you talked about, well, in your article, you talked about these selling for, I don't know, $8 a piece or something.
Not even, I don't think. I think that you could sell a batch of them for that. Now, these days, they're quite expensive. And that's another thing. So if you start looking at the ethics, I suppose it would be, and I'm not troubled overly by ethics, but people are paying a lot of money for historical items, and it's very difficult to differentiate between your newly forged item and a historical item. So I like to stamp my name on these, letting people know that this is me. They can see me on the web, so it's not a historical item. I'd hate to think that I'm misrepresenting what's being sold. But then they do sell. People do want them. So again, it's a nice thing that people, who are in a mining community, perhaps have a second home or something up there, looking for a little piece to go on the table. These sell quite nicely. And I make them mine to lay flat on a table, and that's an important thing because we're going to do a little trimming later that allows it to sit flat on the table, and I don't think the miner would really care if it sat flat on the table.
Right.
So again, it's my end user is requiring that.
Right. Okay, great. Next slide.
Well, now I'm back on the offside edge of the anvil, and I'm finishing corner number 2. And if you look at my bottom slide, looks like I didn't quite get it lined up right. It looks like the peak is not super sharp. I'd have preferred it to be sharp. But again, not insurmountable. We can deal with that later, but it would have been nice if it had been sharp.
Okay, and then here we're drawing this down to...
Again, that's our fat 1/4 inch.
Right.
And what I would like, when finished, we've already started on the other end between corner 1. So we're looking at corner 2, and corner 1 is off to the right there. We want 6 inches between the peaks of material.
Okay, right. Great. Now we're talking about chamfering. This is a little detail work here.
It is a little detail work, and you'll see some of the collectors of these things talking about file work, and I sometimes think that they are missing what is forge work and calling it file work, because certainly that could have been done by a file, but we, being blacksmiths, can do that a lot quicker in the forge. What does it they say? A minute at the forge is worth 5 at the bench?
Right.
And so that's what we're going to do. We've got a heat there. We're just starting to work it anyway because we're drawing that material down, so no problem putting in a little chamfer. So there's a variety of ways you can do that. I'm choosing to use a V-block, which I think is going to be shown on the next slide. You'll notice I didn't chamfer all the way around on that far right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and so I left that because that's going to be tapped by the hammer, or whatever, by the hand anyway, as people drive this into a piece of clay or wood or whatever into the mine. Mine.
All right, this next slide is talking about using the V-swedge block.
Which is a shallow V, yeah.
Okay. And did you make this one?
Yes, so I started off with, it was 1.25" square bar, about 4.5 inches long, and I upset it into a swage block, and the top of that should be about 2 inches square, and it's got a 1-inch square peg, actually tapering peg.
Now, this is such a great way to chamfer edges. I never thought about using this.
Yeah, and that I picked that up from Francis Whitaker. He did, I don't know if his was the same as mine, but it was the same principles anyway. So thank you very much, Francis Whitaker.
Yes, and it must really take away the option of the corkscrewing happening as well.
Yes, yeah, because you're talking thin material there. It's only just a squeak over 1/4 inch.
Right.
Now the important thing here is we've done everything at this stage by eye. So if you, when we're doing the chamfering, if you look at the bottom left slide, you can see the peak for the square corner, and you can see on the far right of the chamfering there, I like to measure that distance. And then when I repeat this process on the other side of the hammer point, I measure it again to make sure that the hammer point is actually in the middle of the eye. Does that make sense?
No. Now say that again.
Okay, so
you're measuring this length of the first chamfer?
Not that,
no.
but see where your pointer is now?
Yes.
I measure from there to the peak of the square corner further left.
To here?
Yes. I measure that. And then when I make the same chamfering on the other side of the eye, I measure it again to make sure the two are equal, because I'm driving in stock into something, I'm forging it, and it's possible I can have two different lengths.
Right. Okay.
And I don't want that.
Okay. Now tell me this. When you are chamfering this in the swedge, is it lengthening this at all?
Yes, it must.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see again in slide, let's call it number 4, the bottom right, I'm dressing the increase in thickness because there must be some, and that would lengthen it as well. Yeah, so that's again why I take measurements. You know, when I've got something that has to be repeated on another side, I like to know what I'm aiming at.
Okay.
Oh, the big thing is, so I'm looking at top right. I put the corner 1/2 inch off to the outside of the swage. That's my measurement.
Okay.
So between your red dot and the swage is about 1/2 inch.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Here we go.
So now we're back to the shoulder that we put in earlier. Now, there's a couple of ways I could have approached this. I could have used the peen of the hammer to draw this out, but now we're relying on a little more accuracy, should we say. So that I'm choosing to use the flat face of the hammer initially, and that's why I drew the flag of material down to 1/4 by 1/2 inch to allow me to use this technique. If I change the technique here, then that flag material may not be the right measurements. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to grow, I'm flattening this, and as I flatten it, it will grow in length. And I think I want a length of something about 3¼ 3.5 inches long. It's probably in the text there somewhere. And so I'm flattening this, and once I get that measurement, then I'm going to turn the hammer over, and I'm going to use the peen to start to increase the width.
Tell me why you have this at an angle.
Because I've got the shoulder set there, and so if I put it into the shoulder, I'm not going to take a double stab at that shoulder. I know that's in the right place. If I held that flat, that shoulder would be in the air, and it's possible I could misalign it.
Okay, so you take a few hits at...
Just to warm up, and then
Right.
I lift my tongue hand as I run the hammer down. That's right.
Okay. All right. Next slide. We're still now here. You're using the cross peen of the
Right, and all I'm trying to do is pull material into the corner. You can see on the top left I've got the arrow there. So I'm just using the peen to just draw a little material in. And, you know, I may rotate the stock slightly as I'm doing that to make sure I'm pulling material where I want it. But the important thing is get the material into that corner. And again, it's just an aesthetic. Does the miner really care if the corner is full? I doubt it. But in terms of my clients, this going on a dining room table or something like that, I think it adds to the piece. So that's why I put the effort in.
Now, what if when you're peening out this corner and you blew it out too much?
Well, you can always rasp it off.
Okay.
Hot rasp, yeah.
All right.
But again, you've got, I have a target in mind. So if we look at that top right photograph, if you look at the quarter-inch square stock coming into the flag, I'm trying to draw a measurement between the far left of that quarter-inch and the far right of my flag, the corner we've just peened. I want that to be about 1 inch.
Oh, so from over here to over here.
That's right. So I've got that in my mind as I'm working. Now, I'm not a slave to that. I'm more of a slave to being 1/16 of an inch thick because I don't want this to be too heavy because it'll look really heavy. It won't look purposeful. But I'm going to stop and evaluate at the 1 inch mark. And then I'll make a conscious decision as opposed to just keep hitting it and end up with whatever I get.
Okay. And what's happening here in this slide?
Now we've drawn the rest of the material out, and now we're just dressing the flat candle holder, just getting rid of all the dings from the cross peen. You'll notice I changed the angle on the top right. I'm working down the flag of material to spread it. Now, if you look at the bottom material, I've got spread material left and right of the quarter-inch square. The bit on the left is going to interfere with this tool sitting flat on the table. Now, if it was going out to a miner, no big deal. We'd leave it. But if it's going to sit flat on the table, that has to go away.
I see. Right. Okay.
And I don't know of a way of spreading that candle holder material, without getting that little bit at the bottom. So if anybody does, let me know.
Now, when you are spreading this out and making it down to a 16th, you know, what if it gets a little... you know,
wavy edged.
Yes, wavy and loopy.
Well, let's talk about that because we knew when we drew it down, we drew it down reasonably flat edge. So if it has a wavy edge, it means that the material has not been spread equally. If I have, let's call it a concave area, then I must have a hump of material somewhere in that flag that has not been thinned to 1/16, because if it was, I wouldn't have the concave. So that wavy edge is an indicator that you've not forged it all equally. Now, my cross peen has a slight crown to it, as does the flat face of my hammer. And so I can just turn my peen just slightly, and I effectively cut the width of my cross peen in half or more, and I can go to the root of those concave little areas, and I can start to peen it and pull out that thicker material and make it straight edged.
So you should take care to not peen it thinner than a 16th because, right?
Yes, especially in the gas forge because you've got all the oxidization. Now, and that's a very interesting point. Let's change subjects just slightly. Let's punch a hole with a slot punch or with a blacksmith round punch. And we know the biscuit that comes out. How thick is that typically? It's about a 16th, isn't it? And if you think of the surface area of that punch, either the round punch or the slot punch, it's significantly smaller than the cross peen of a hammer. So if you think of the force that's being applied to that, which is good blows from the hammer, and you only get 1/16 of an inch, I think that if you work with this, you can work with relative impunity, and it will go to 1/16 of an inch. Thereafter, it starts to become difficult to get it any thinner. You certainly can, but you'd have to heat it and rework it and rework it and rework it. I think the physics of the material and the hammering, there's a limit there, that 1/16 of an inch. That biscuit that we get out of the punched holes is telling us something. I really need to go back and try and listen to what it's trying to tell me.
what if this gets cattywampus, like, and it starts to bend?
Oh, it will get cattywampus. Absolutely, it'll get cattywampus. So again, the other thing is it started off equally. So if it's cattywampus, I have to think. Let's put it as you were just doing with that arrow, and it's falling away to the left.
Yeah, the whole thing.
So the whole thing. So I'd have to think that the left-hand side of the flag has not been stretched enough. Mm-hmm. And if you stretched it, it will come back to being flat. Mm-hmm. If you overwork the right-hand side, it will curve, rather like, have you ever seen somebody make a sickle? Mm-hmm. Yep. Right, so you'll start off with it actually bent the wrong way, and then as you make the peen, it will come, exactly.
Okay.
So if it's bending that way, you've probably not worked the other edge enough.
BlacksmitHer Radio, forging blacksmiths together.